Hello everyone and welcome for another video of Love and Wargames. In this video, we are taking a look at the newest faction for the crown, which are the Indians. They arrived to us through the Ganges Battlefleet Set, or Ganges I will say from now on because that's how we say in French, and they're really interesting in that they have a quite unique playstyle compared to the rest of the crown. So we will analyze each ship that you get in the box, how to play each and every variant. We'll also talk quickly about the update to the Crown Orbit because of course it will impact the Indians as well. Just for information, we went in 3.05 a couple days ago at the moment when I record this. So yeah, there has been some major changes. There are boosts for the entire Crown faction, and of course the Indians benefit from this very well. Before we start to dive deep inside the Indians, let's first talk about the Crown in general and how do they play. First of all, visually, they are the default faction in the sense that they have this very classical steampunk appearance. Like when you think of Victorian era steamships, this is usually how you picture them and how they are depicted in the media. And how do they play? They are as go quite well with their classical appearance. They have very classical playstyle in the sense they use a lot and very efficiently all the what you would call the basic weaponries of the game. They have very good torpedo salvos. They have extremely good gun batteries. There used to be a time when I would say the Union have the best gun batteries of the game, and now they're really tailed by the Crown. The Crown have even better gun batteries than the Union, which is a bit sad because that was what made the Union good, but we'll talk about it another time. So very good classical ships with classical weaponries most of the time, and they are solid. That's the word to define them. They have good defensive profile. In general, they are more on the defensive side than the glass cannon side, and especially they have a lot of combo with their own variant of the shield generators, which are called Guardians generators. And basically how it plays is like every ship, instead of having its own shield generator, they put all their generators in common for the shield, and then you have a pool of what is called Guardian points that you can use either to use as a normal shield generator, making a little bit of a difference on every attack, or you can gather it and really absolutely cancel out a massive enemy attack. And this makes the Crown an even more defensive faction, one of the toughest faction in the game, way up there alongside the Russians and the Japanese. So what do they have also in that is better than other factions in the game are the torpedoes. They used to have normal torpedoes with good ways to boost them through the Trident generators. They still have the Trident, but they also now have their own variations of the torpedo turrets, and they are quite different because they cannot link anymore with the normal torpedo salvos, so you will have to make different small attacks. And their own torpedo turrets are the swift torpedo turrets. We'll talk about them a little bit in detail, but it means they are even more unique in their torpedo game, and I would say it makes them even stronger. Finally, the last thing to know is that they are good for beginners because they are easy to play. They don't have funky rules or absolute need on trickeries like you would say for example, the Covenant or for the Sultanate, and it makes them easy to play, and they are tough, and even if you make a mistake, your ships will not melt instantly. Even better, if you have one ship that you position badly and your opponent tries to take advantage of it, because of how the Guardian points work, you can really cancel the big attack that will target this specific ship that you position badly. So again, very good for beginners. What do you actually get in the Ganges Battlefleet set? Let's say first that it's the intermediate size of boxes, so not the largest at all. So what you get is one resin flagship, two sprues, and that's it. And the sprues, they are the Indian Raj frontline sprues, and those are quite quite thick, as you can see from our unboxing video. You do have two cruisers, very well. Instead of the frigates you usually have, you get two platforms, which are mass 2. You also have 2 landing tokens, and you have 4 escort tokens, which will be common for the entire crown. So quite a lot of things. You have a lot of variations, 2 different flagships you can build, and you can build 6 different cruisers. So since it's an entirely new nation and everybody's discovering these data sheets, I think it's quite important that we take a little bit of time to talk about each variant and how you can play them and what combos I see. Again, this is just my opinion. We will need to put those things painted and on the table to really practice with them and see how they work. But we can start to see really what is the playstyle of the Indians, and I have to say I really like what I'm seeing. Let's begin with the Ganges Battlecruiser, and this is like really, really an efficient ship. It's not crazy. You will not look at the data sheet and say, "Oh my God, that is a beast," because it has armor 7, citadel 14, which is low for battleship, but it's kind of like a heavy cruiser territory, so good. It has 7/4 hull points, so it will take a while until it gets crippled. And even then, let's remember that through I think it's Lion-Hearted crew that allows the British to keep firing at good efficiencies with their weapons and gun batteries, even when they are crippled. So let's remember that you really need to bring these beasts down, especially if it's equipped with all the gun batteries. It has heavy firepower, of course, all the good rules from the Crown Orbat update that we will see in a minute, but especially for all this package, it's a fast ship, a tough ship, it's bristling with weaponries as you can see everywhere, and for all of this, you only pay 220 points. So it is not the flashiest ship in the fleet, like by far, but it is very efficient for what you pay. Like, I mean, it is like the price of two smaller cruiser, let's say. And for this price, you have a lot of firepower and a lot of resilience. Like, I mean, I really like it. If it were at 250 or 260, I would start to say like, yeah, like it's fine, but whatever, not so great. But at 220, I would like one or even two in my fleets with pleasure, for sure. You can equip it with only 2 escort tokens, which is a bit sad because it might get targeted a lot by torpedoes, which are the weakness of the Guardian generators. You can replace a lot of weaponries, especially with the majestic gun batteries that could maybe transform it into a long-range artillery ship. If you put a generator in the back and then a majestic gun battery in the front, you turn it into a good extreme, like a long-range firepower piece. Let's remember that the Swift torpedo turrets, which are the two that you see in the front, are not extreme range. They are a torpedo, they are piercing, which is very good for torpedoes, and they have good stat lines, but they are not extreme range, so be careful about that. It has, as you can see, a lot of weapons front and back, 2 heavy gun batteries, one front, one back, and 2 small gun batteries with the same repartitions. It has 2 Swift torpedo turrets in the front. It's those little things that you can see right there. It has Guardian Generator 2, not crazy, 2 broadsides, and also you can replace the heavy gun batteries with heavy Swift torpedo turret. So there are a lot of ways to customize it. I can absolutely hear someone saying like, okay, put a generator in the back, transform the frontal heavy gun battery into a heavy Swift torpedo turret and the frontal gun battery into a smaller Swift torpedo turret. That will make one big dice pool of piercing damage, and that is absolutely a way to play it. You can also play it full, like the package that you see right here, with a little bit of everything to be like a versatile ship. You can put all the majestic gun batteries you want. Like, really, you can customize it, and it's always going to be good. I really like the Ganges. The other variant that you will have is the Palashi Indiaman, and basically you trade a little bit of firepower, and it's also more expensive, as you can see, to make an East India privateer's ship. So it's not, be careful, it's not Indiaraj ship anymore, so it's EITC, the same as the Adventurer was, the one from the Gloriana set. So be careful in list construction, it can be a little bit difficult, but just like it's basically a smaller Adventurer if I compare, if you already know the Crown, in the sense that it's a good combat ship with a ton of utility because it has logistical support, great. It has Auspicio Regina, which is the, like, whatever, it's the rule of the ITC. It's good. They give you boost if you like, it's a win more option where you gain bonus if you're winning through the points, and also you can gain even more points and use your victory cards again. Okay, good. But the main thing is that it has logistical support and supply depot and useful freight, which means that this thing is really made to play into the playstyle of the EITC, which is like try to play a lot with your cards, your victory cards especially, to trigger your massive capacity and then to win more and more and more. So having a Palashi alongside an Adventurer is absolutely a great idea, and we can really start to see the playstyle that Warcradle wants to give to the EITC. But be careful again, this is not an Indian Raj ship. overall, you don't lose that much compared to the Ganges. You lose very little, if I'm honest. Okay, you pay a little bit more. You lose the rear heavy gun battery, sure, but you gain so many utilities. Like, you know how much I love logistical support. I also quite like supply depot, and useful freight is usually meh, but in the playstyle of this subfaction, it's actually great. So depends on what you want to do. If you want a pure Indian fleet, don't build the Palashi, and by the you can even build twice the Ganges if you want it so. But if you have already some EITC or basic British ships, that is absolutely a good ship to have. The last thing that I will say about the Palashi, and it's quite an important one if I'm being honest, is that both the EITC and the Nagaraja are specialist battle fleets, which means that if you play at a tournament or you really try to apply the rule and you don't just play narratively, you cannot build a fleet only with this, because you need one fleet that is a main fleet for each specialist fleet. Important because if you take the right patron, which is one cost 1 VP at the beginning of the game, meh, but fine, you can turn your EITC as main fleets, which means that if you want to buy the crown with this box, the Ganges, and you want to buy it once or buy it twice, and you're not interested in the British or the Canadians or anything, then this is the way that you can have a legal list. You will need to have at least one Palashi in your fleet, and then have the right patron, which is like kind of like subfaction that will unlock EITC as main fleet, because then you can have in your list the EITC, which will be your main fleets, and the Indian Raj, which will be specialist, and then you have only like basically Indian ships in your list, and it will be legal to play. So something important to keep into consideration. Now that we've seen the flagships, let's talk about the 6 variants of the cruisers, and the first one is the Chanura Repairship. This ship is already quite good. We will see that all the cruisers are good. This little guy costs 120 points, which is pricey but fine, especially when you consider it has a heavy gun battery and a small gun battery as well. I'm not sure if it's a typo because the small gun battery is not visible on the model. Let's consider that it's a typo and it will disappear. But even without this, still one heavy gun battery to the front with 2 swift torpedo turrets is great. You can absolutely, and I think that's what I would recommend, either replace the heavy gun battery with a heavy swift torpedo turret, or like what I would recommend is to replace the heavy gun battery with a Trident generator, for example, and that will be quite a good way to provide a Trident on a non-priority target. It will boost its own torpedo attacks and also the torpedo attacks of the Indians around itself. I really like it, and one thing to consider is that it's an attached unit and you can attach it to any Indian Raj ship. So you can attach it to your Ganges if you want, very good, but you can also attach it to any of your cruiser units, and especially, for example, your Indus or basically anything. So it's always good to have 1 or even 2 Chanuras to put around and to attach to your ships, or just to fly to sail alongside, especially when you consider that it has advanced repair facilities too, which means that it should launch its mass 2 plus ARF2. It should launch 4 dices for repairs, but since it has reliable design, it launches a 5th dice to every repair roll. So even more chance to repair ships like himself or ships around himself. Very good. So it's a very reliable repair ship, and it can also have more chances this way to get these almighty explosive hits, and thus repairing some damages and giving back hull points on ships around. I really like the Chanura. It's appropriately costed, and I would see at least one in every single Indian Raj list. We continue with the Nagaraja tactical cruiser. This guy is basically like when you put all the options on one. It has heavy gun battery to the front, small gun battery to the rear, and like a ton of weapons left and right. I will say it's quite a little bit expensive in a way, but maybe it's appropriately costed. It has 5 hull points in battle ready, so you would consider it a heavy cruiser. And the thing that makes it really good is that it's very versatile. It has tons of weaponries. It comes by default with a majestic gun battery that is great, and you probably want to keep it. It has also 2 swift torpedo turrets to the front. It has heavy broadside, just as, and we're gonna say it now, every single Indian cruiser, yes, you heard that right, even the smallest Indian cruiser has heavy broadside, which is huge, and leans into the playstyle of small, cheap ships that are quite good at closing and even point blank range, which is something that was missing from the Crown. And it's just a good ship at every range. Long, extreme range, it will be good with its majestic. Starting at long range, it will use its swift torpedo turrets. When it gets at closing, you can really bring the pain with the majestic gun batteries, and even the smaller gun batteries can help. And the heavy broadside starts to shoot. And when you get at point blank range, let me tell you, this heavy broadside is no joke. Especially if you have a second Nagaraja around, it's going to be a ton of weaponry. So very good ship, and it's time to talk about one of the update for the Crown, which is the change to Royal Engineers. You still have a little bonus to your repair rolls and a little more dice, especially good with heavy firepower. Fine, but now the big thing is that if you shoot with gunnery or broadside within 20 inches, so no, doesn't combo well with the majestic, but if you shoot with those weapons, which you usually will have a ton of, then if you make double or greater than the initial target's mass, you gain devastating. That is crazy because uh, if you do shoot with a lot of units on, for example, a mass 3, and you do trigger this rule, it's straight up 6 additional dices that you will gain from this rule. So boom, you will not trigger it every single time, but it's already quite good. And when it will trigger, let me tell you that your opponent will feel it. It's quite good. It does favor big attacks from a lot of units coordinating their heavy gun batteries or majestic or broadsides all together, but it's good. It's quite in the fluff. And let's remember that it works for your majestic gun batteries, etc. But it also works for all the heavy broadsides that you will have in the Indians, because heavy broadsides it's 10, 5 for firepower. So it means like if you shoot 15 dices with full reroll of the blues, which you will get at point blank, you are almost guaranteed, like you have extremely high chance to trigger this every single time against a mass 2 statistically. So that is quite good. So it means that those Indian ships absolutely obliterate mass 2 or mass 1 of course ships at point blank. Like broadside with the devastating is just very naughty. Like there is no other ways to say it. And it also really boosts your heavy gun batteries. So overall a great rule, and the Nagaraja might not be the best Indian cruiser like at first glance, but it's still very good. We then go to the Godavari Littoral cruiser. This guy is quite good. It has frontal majestic gun batteries, and it has these swift torpedoes. Good. It might be a little bit overpriced, and we'll see how it gets later, because it has coastal bombardment, which is a quite rare rule, and landing vessel. Both impact parts of the game that are not available right now because there is no landing rules yet. Be careful not that you might pay a bit too much for that, but when we'll have rules, this might be the king of one of the kings of landing scenarios, because it probably will be the one guy that you will want to drop your tanks on islands, and it can clear the path with its coastal bombardment first. So for 110 points, it is still a good ship. It comes by default with a majestic gun battery, which is nothing to sniff at. It means that first turn it will be able to shoot at extreme range with its very powerful guns, also probably with its swift torpedo turrets. And again, when you get at point blank, it still gets quite some bite with its heavy broadsides. So overall, a good ship. I like it, especially when you consider that you can attach some Devakis to the Godavaris. Those guys are very small. It's the smallest ship you can build. 82 points give you a fragile littoral monitor because it's 4/3 as all points, so it can be destroyed. But at this point, we're fine. And this guy as well has both coastal bombardment and landing vessel. This is quite crazy. It does mean that you can make an absolute huge pack, because you can then make a pack of 3 Godavaris with an attached Devakis in the front to take the rain, because like kind of like triggering your enemy's attack, because this guy is much cheaper and less threatening. Do note that it does not come equipped by default with a majestic gun battery, so you will need to go at almost 90 points if you want to upgrade it this way in order to link with Godavaris. I I am fine with the Devaki, but I would say it's the most underwhelming of all the Indian cruisers. I would like to like it, but unfortunately I don't that much because the fact that it doesn't combo so good with the other cruiser, because you need to buy the Majestic gun batteries. It's not great in itself, even though it can be a fun little pack. And the reason I don't like so much the Devaki is because we have the Indus line cruiser. For 90 points, you get a hell of a package. Just a little teaser, when it was sent in the beta orbit, this guy cost 80 points, and everybody was like all the warhosts were like, no, that's way too cheap for this. It's just eclipsing all the other ships by far at this price. But even at 90 points, it's still very, very good. It's basic cruiser stat lines in most regards, with all the good things we said about gun batteries for the Crown. Heavy broadsides, of course, so wow. It has a rear gun battery, so you can really link well at closing range. And this guy, if I had to compare it, I would say it's a little bit similar to an Excalibur, I would say, but on steroids, in the sense that it's kind of like a heavy, heavy destroyer. It wants to be either at closing range, and that's what it usually wants. So for very cheap, you will have a ship with heavy gun batteries and gun batteries, so very good for triggering Royal Engineers. It also has focused gunnery, and this is the thing that makes it crazy, because it will make one big attack. And also at point blank range, it will start to have heavy broadside for just obliterating anything that comes at a point blank. So it doesn't do many things, but it does one thing specifically. It doesn't have even Guardian Generator, so it's quite different to most of the other Crown ships. It does one thing very well, which is to just go on brawling and do a ton of damage on basically everything that is around. It's good to have this kind of glass cannon. I put a big quotation mark, glass cannons, in the sense that it does only damage, and it's quite unresilient because it does not have access to Guardian Generators, even though it is on the model, but okay. I understand for balance reason why it is like this. You will never go wrong by building two Indus the first time you buy the Ganges Battlefleet set. If I'm being honest, and this is another thing that makes it very good, even if you buy twice the Ganges Battlefleet set, it will not be crazy to build only Indus line cruisers, because they can be in a squadron of 4. And let me tell you that a squadron of 4 of those with Majestic gun batteries will be an absolute nightmare for your opponent. Well, even if you just keep it cheap with heavy gun batteries, like it's still gonna be so good because it's very cheap, and focus gunnery will make it great. And 4 heavy broadsides, let me tell you that even battleships start to quiver at the idea of getting hit by 4 heavy broadsides at point blank that can become devastating if he does enough critical hits. Very, very good ship, and I love it, and I want 4 of those. Finally, the last thing you get in the box is the Ceylon Guardian platforms. Laughing at Ceylon, it's the name of my own dog. But yeah, the Ceylon Guardian platform. For 70 points, it is one of the few platforms that I would say is usable. It is cheap. It is very fragile at armor 5 and citadel 12, sure, and only 6 hull points. But the two things that make it quite interesting, well, you can attach it to a larger platform, but fine. It has Guardian Generator 2, okay, quite well. It can be up to 3 platforms at once, so you can link their firepower together. Very interesting, especially when you consider 2 things. First of all, you can replace their gun batteries with swift torpedo turrets, so you can really put them just outside your deployment zone because of forward deployment, and you can use them to really send torpedoes, wave after wave after waves of torpedoes, because your opponent will not want to kind of like waste firepower on those. So it's one of the few platforms that I would say, because of their long range firepower and cheap price cost, might be actually quite usable. And also because they have a Guardian Surge, which means that if you put 3 of those with Guardian Surge, it is going to be like something like, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be something like 12 dice, because 6 Guardians times 2, yeah, it's going to be 12 Guardian points every turn for these 3 things at 210 points, a little bit more if you put torpedoes. And yeah, just overall, one of the rare few platforms that are good. We see that the faction-specific platforms are better than the generic ones. We've seen this with the Union Frontier that can be hidden and send SRS boardings, and this guy does exactly the opposite, but it again plays very well inside the Crown playstyle. Okay, so you bought the Ganges Battlefleet set and you played it and you like it, or you want to start really hard with the Crown and you really want to have a large Indian fleet. How do you do? Just heads up, if you already have a large Crown fleet and you just want to use the Ganges as a little support, this is not the message for you. But if you're a new Dystopian Wars player or you want to start the Crown through the Indians, this is for you. How do you expand after the Ganges? Well, the first thing that I will say is that if you want to have a very vast fleet with all these ships, it is not at all a bad idea to buy this box twice or even thrice. I think the sweet spot is to buy it twice and then to get some Indian frontline squadron, because if you buy it twice, you will have two of those flagships. One will be a Palashi and one will be a Ganges, and as we've said, this with a good patron allows you to have a full Indian list entirely legal, with the EITC as the main battle fleet and the Indian Raj as a specialist battle fleet. So having two Ganges Battlefleet sets and then you can buy all the frontline sprues that you want is the best deal in my opinion. If you buy a second time the Ganges Battlefleet set, you will have 4 cruisers. You might want to build them all as Indus right now, and you will have 4 Ceylon platforms. Either you can play them 2 by 2 to be able to buy them, for example, make a big pack of 3 for which you will use guard and surge, and another one platform that will be, like, for example, on the opposite side of the table. That's already good. And of course, you will have more ground tokens and more escorts. Of course, more escorts, the happier I am. But yeah, this is really going to be my tips if you don't only want Indian Raj and EITC ships, is going to be to buy 2 times these Ganges and then at least once or maybe twice the Indian Raj frontline sprues. It is going to be an investment because if you use our discount code, if you buy through MyOBPlace and it's gonna be minus 10% each time, so less than 50 euros for each Ganges, so let's say 100, and then it's gonna be something like I think 20 or 25 per support. So for less than 150 euros, you will have like 6 or 8 cruisers, a ton of platforms, a ton of escorts and ground tokens, and 2 or even 3 of the flagships. So this is going to be an absolutely massive fleet, full Indian, very fun gameplay. And if you're starting the Crown and are interested in the Indians, that is what I would recommend. Another very good way to play, to expand, is the Crown starter set. And this is very good for a few reasons. First of all, the starter sets are, as always, a great deal. 72 euros for everything that you see listed here is great. Let's remember that you have dices, cards, movement tools, tokens, everything, a map of the world. Like, you got so many things in the starter set. You get the Britannia, a very tough frontline brawler, which is very good now. There are 2 great named variants, the Phaeton, which cannot do one massive attack, but is quite happy to get access to the swift torpedo turrets, especially. You also have the great Indefatigable, which is like such a good ship, like amazing battleship. You have 2 British frontline cruisers. They're all quite good. I especially like the basic Albion, which can be attached, and the cheap Picton, which is kind of like an Indus, let's say. So if you want to really have a horde of ships, that's great. Talking about hordes, you're going to have 4 Caliburn frigates. Again, very cheap and very fast and quite good now. They've been boosted and boosted and boosted, and now they're quite usable, especially with the latest boost to the Crown Orbits. So fast and good frigates. You also had 2 support cruisers. You can have some carriers, fine. You can have the Athelstan, which is a great shredding defense ship that also acts as a massive, like very powerful flak barrage array, great. And you have also the Agincourt, which is an artillery vessel, which starts to be a little bit, there is a better version in the sense if you use the Indus with majestic gun batteries, for example. I'm sure you can, but if you use the Indians with majestic gun batteries, the Agincourt, it's not so good to be the Agincourt right now. Still, it is fine, especially if you really want to lean into this gameplay style and keep this extreme range firepower play style. You also have two Morgana assault submarines. Again, something that was quite weak in the beginning, very fragile, and now it's got many boosts. It can deploy close to the opponent now, and it's gotten cheaper, cheaper, and cheaper. And now it really starts to be to the point where I would say it is a good ship. 83 points for the Morgana that can really make a powerful turn one torpedo salvo and be extremely threatening with its saw, its kill saw. It's a great ship. And finally, you get two Excaliburs, which are very, very aggressive damage dealers. You only get two Excaliburs in the newest support sprues because you can make a couple more variants. You can make a variant of the Excalibur that is more entire and a variant of the support cruiser, which is long-range V1 rocket missile ship, basically. If you can find the old starter set, you get 4 Excaliburs, which is great because the Excaliburs are amazing. They're very powerful. They're basically smaller Indus in the sense that they don't have guardian points. They're quite fragile for their point cost, but they are fast. They like to be at closing and point blank to use all their broadsides and guns, and they're just amazing units all around. They've been nerfed a few times because they were way too powerful. It used to be the best unit of the crown by far. Now it's more in line with the rest of the routers. The last thing that makes me say that the Crown starter set is great is because if you want to play pure Indian, in the sense you don't want to play EITC, you just want pure Indian Raj forces, this allows you to have a good main battle fleet, which will be the British, and then the Indian can be auxiliaries, and you can build all your Indian ships, not as the Palashi, etc., but you can really build only pure Indian Raj ships with your Ganges Battlefleets. And finally, the Gloriana Battlefleet Set that is quite more expensive, so more than 100 euros if you buy it normally. You always get minus 10% on my hobby place, so that's very good. Plus, it supports the channel if you choose us at the checkout. So if you do this, thank you in advance. And this is also a very good way to supplement your Ganges Battlefleet set. There is a ton of ships, and again, it unlocks the British battle fleet as a main force, which will then allow you to use without any problem your Indians as a specialist battle fleet. You get the Gloriana, which is an amazing ship. I love the Gloriana so much. It's very, very good for its point cost. It's tough. It is bristling with weapon. It is very resilient. And you just need to replace one of its 4 heavy gun batteries with a shroud. And then you put, for example, 3 majestic, but you don't even have to. And then you have a very, very tough ship that still is very, you still have 3 heavy gun batteries, which will love to get heavy firepower to trigger Royal Engineers, because then you will get plus 3 dices. 30 dices is going to be at the good range. You have quite a lot of chances to trigger the devastating. Such a good ship. The Gloriana is amazing, and it's probably one of the best dreadnought in the game, and it just looks amazing. Just look at it. You can also build it as a Camelot, which is a more support-oriented Gloriana, but it has Guardian Generator points 8, and it has Guardian Surge, so it can go all the way to Guardian points 16. So if you build into a Guardian spam list, the Camelot is amazing. And finally, you have yet another EITC battleship, which is the Adventurer. We talked about it a little bit. It's basically a Palashi, but much bigger. More weapons, more support. I think it has advanced repair facilities. If you want to make a EITC fleet, then buying a Ganges Battlefleet set, getting the Palashi, and then buying the Gloriana Battlefleet set to build the Adventurer is the best way right now to have a pure East India Trade Company fleet. You also have 2 Pride in Noir rotors. They look small on the artwork, but you've seen them quite a few times on the channel. They are these amazing flying cruisers that looks like an Alliance air fortress in a Warcraft. They are very good. They're quite cheap, and they got even cheaper with the Orbit. They are great. You can make them a torpedo boat, or you can give them all the gun batteries. Anyway, they're going to be quite efficient, especially because they're a bit more expensive than an Albion, and they have 1 less hull points, but they are immune to torpedoes, which make them great torpedo duelists, and they can see the whole map because they are aerial. You have 4 British frontline cruisers. We've talked about them. Same about the Caliburns. And finally, you get 4 Saxons, which are these small little ships. They have corvette duty, which make them quite interesting. They are cheap now. All the Crown aerial have gotten cheaper, and the Saxon starts to be they're still as hurtless as ever. They really don't have much firepower, but they are cheap and they are good corvette duty escort ships now. You also have 2 Tintagels, not also got cheaper, and they need it because they are fragile, they are mess ones, and they don't do that much. They can be attached to an Avalon if you plan on buying one later, and who would blame you because the Avalon looks amazing. And they start to be cheap enough that you will consider them. Plus, they are also a landing ship, which means that when we get the landing scenarios, which should be anytime now, those will start to be really important. I wrote tons of dices and stuff, but it's a mistake. You don't get that. Okay, better. And for the Gloriana, I would highly recommend it because, first of all, I love all the ships. Look, the Gloriana looks glorious, and the Pridens are such a good presence on the fleet. Like, it would look amazing alongside your Indians. The Crown IRL has got quite a big boost in terms of points, and they are very interesting now. So it is very expensive. Yes, it's going to be with the discounts you get from my place around 90 euros. But again, you get so much out of this little box. And if you want to play East India Trade Company, this is the way to go. A Ganges Battlefleet set and a Gloriana Battlefleet set. Alright, that's it for this video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to give us a thumbs up, it really helps, and to give us also a little comment. Depending on when you put the comment, you will earn a chance to win one of two Battlefleet set. If you post quite soon, it will be either an Alliance or a Crown Battlefleet, so kind of like the time to play. And starting in February, we're going to have a second contest where you can win, I can spoil it now. It's gonna be a Union and a Covenant battle fleets, like quite large fleets again. Okay, thank you very much for having watched until the end. Take care of yourself, take care of those around you, and of course, as always, remember to keep spreading the love. Bye!